Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, prepare to be immersed in a world of eerie whispers and unsettling tales, designed to both chill and soothe. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness carry you away. And if these nightly tales captivate you, feel free to join our community for more whispered secrets.
Elias Moreau leaned against the weathered railing of his Cape Town apartment balcony, the Atlantic Ocean's waves crashing below, the salty breeze ruffling his graying hair. It was March 16, 2025, and at 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his years. Decades tracking war criminals and spies across Europe, now reduced to missing pets and infidelity cases. His phone buzzed, a rare international call from Adelaide, Australia, snapping him from his reverie. The voice on the line belonged to Dr. Margaret Chun, a historian at the University of Adelaide, her tone urgent. "Mr. Moreau, I found something. Your name came up in old files. The Somerton Man case, 1948. It's tied to something bigger, and it's active again. Can you come?" Elias's pulse quickened. The Somerton Man, an unidentified body found on Somerton Beach, a suit with no labels, a coded scrap from a rare book, and a coroner's verdict of poisoning, unsolved for decades. He'd consulted on the case in 1990, a dead end then, but Margaret's call hinted at new life. "Send me the details," he said, his French accent softened by years in South Africa. Margaret emailed a scanned file, police reports, the code Wagga Wagga Tman RF, a photo of the man's ear, and a 2024 note. "The cipher lives, Cape Town connection." Elias recorded a memo on his notepad app, his voice low. March 16, 2025, 9:43 a.m. Margaret Chens found a link, Somerton Man to Cape Town. Time to dig. He booked a flight to Adelaide, a 12-hour journey with a layover in Perth, his mind racing. Landing on March 18, the city's summer heat hit him, the beachfront a stark contrast to Cape Town's chill. Margaret, a petite woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, met him at the university, her office cluttered with books, the Somerton file on her desk. "The man was poisoned digitalis from a plant," she said, her voice steady. "But the code, the ear anomaly. Experts think he was a spy, possibly Soviet. I found a 1970 Bergen, Norway case, the Isdal Woman, burned body, coded luggage tags, same ear shape. Both linked to a Cold War network, and someone's reactivating it here." Elias examined the file. A 1948 autopsy report, the man's suit traced to American tailoring, the code unsolved, and a 1970 Norwegian police sketch of the Isdal Woman, her identity erased by fire, her possessions marked with 2 and 3. Margaret handed him a letter postmarked Cape Town, 2024, addressed to a Mr. X. "The cipher is key. Meet at Signal Hill, March 20th, 2025. Bring the package." Elias recorded it, his voice tense. "This ties Somerton to Isdal, now Cape Town, a spy ring dormant waking up." Margaret shared a rumor. A South African intelligence officer, Johan Van der Merwe, had visited Adelaide in 1948, then Bergen in 1970, possibly recruiting for the network. Elias visited the Somerton Beach site, the sand warm under his shoes, the ocean's rhythm unchanged since 1948. A local historian, Thomas O'Connor, a wiry man in his 70s, joined him, his memory sharp. "The man was found here, suit pristine, no ID," Thomas said, his Australian accent thick. "Folks said he met someone, saw a car black near the jetty." Johan Van der Merwe's name popped up in whispers, ex-special branch, moved to South Africa after the war. Elias recorded the lead, his mind on Johan, now 98 if alive, a potential link to the 2024 note. He photographed the beach, uploading a memo to his cloud drive. March 18, 2025, 3:15 p.m. Van der Merwe, Somerton's recruiter, may be still active. That evening, Elias met Margaret at a pub, the air thick with beer and chatter, where she introduced a cryptologist, Dr. Ravi Patel, a bespectacled man in his 40s with a quick mind. Ravi analyzed the Somerton code, using modern algorithms, his fingers flying over a laptop. "It's a substitution cipher," Ravi said, his voice excited. Wagga Wagga could be a place, Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, or a code for wait. Tiaman might be the man, RF radio frequency. It's incomplete but points to a signal operation. Elias recorded the breakthrough, his voice intrigued. The code hints at espionage, radio, signals, a network spanning decades. The next day, Elias visited the state archives, a dusty building with flickering lights, where he accessed declassified files on Johan Van der Merwe. A 1948 memo linked Johan to a Soviet defector, codenamed Raven, recruited in Adelaide, possibly the Somerton Man, and a 1970 report placed him in Bergen, overseeing the Isdal Woman's death, a burned spy to silence leaks. Elias recorded the files, his voice grim. Johan ran a network, Somerton was a recruit, Isdal a cleanup. He's in Cape Town now, pulling strings. A photo showed Johan young then, his face stern, the ear anomaly matching both cases. That night, Elias prepared to return to Cape Town, the Signal Hill meeting looming, but a shadow moved outside his hotel window. He grabbed his recorder, its light on, and peered out, a man tall in a black coat, his face obscured, slipping a note under the door. Elias retrieved it, the paper crisp, the message typed. Leave the cipher or join them. March 20th, Signal Hill. His recorder captured his gasp. March 19th, 2025, 11:47 p.m. They know I'm here, threatening me, same as Somerton Isdal. This network's alive. He called Margaret, his voice steady despite the fear, and planned to confront the meeting, the cipher's shadows stretching across continents, his past as an investigator reigniting for one last fight. Elias Moreau sat in his Adelaide hotel room, the threatening note. Leave the cipher or join them. March 20th, Signal Hill. Clutched in his hand, its typed message a chilling echo of the danger he'd uncovered. It was March 19th, 2025, and the humid air pressed against the window, the city's nightlife buzzing below, a stark contrast to the silence of his fear. His recorder captured his steady voice. March 19th, 2025, 11:50 p.m. They've found me, threatened me, just like the Somerton Man, the Isdal Woman. This network's active, and they want me gone. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his past. Decades chasing spies now colliding with a Cold War conspiracy spanning Adelaide, Cape Town, and Bergen, Norway. Elias called Dr. Margaret Chun, the Adelaide historian who'd brought him into the case, her voice tense as he explained the note. It's tied to the Somerton Man, he said, his French accent softened by years in South Africa. The cipher, the ear anomaly, it matches the Isdal Woman in Bergen, 1970. Johan Van der Merwe was in both places, recruiting for a spy ring, and he's in Cape Town now, pulling strings. Margaret agreed, urging him to investigate Bergen. I found a name, Lars Hansen, a retired detective in Bergen. He worked the Isdal case, might know more. Elias booked a flight to Bergen, a 24-hour journey with layovers in Perth and Oslo, his mind on the Signal Hill meeting in Cape Town, now days away, and the cipher's shadow stretching across continents. He landed in Bergen on March 21st, the city's fjord air crisp, the 7 mountains looming under a gray sky, the rain a constant drizzle as he navigated the cobblestone streets. Elias checked into a small hotel near Bergen, the historic wharf's colorful buildings a tourist draw, but his focus was on the Isdal Woman. Found burned in the Isdalen Valley in 1970, her identity erased, her luggage tagged with codes 2 and 3, her ear anomaly matching the Somerton Man's. Elias recorded his arrival. March 21st, 2025, 2:47 p.m. I'm in Bergen. The Isdal Woman's death was no accident, and Johan Van der Merwe was here. Lars Hansen might hold the key. Lars Hansen, a wiry man in his 80s with a grizzled beard and sharp blue eyes, met Elias at a cafe overlooking the fjord, the scent of fish soup mingling with the sea breeze. I heard you're digging into Isdal, Lars said, his Norwegian accent thick, his voice gruff. I was lead detective, never solved it, but I never forgot. Elias explained his investigation. The Somerton Man, the cipher, Johan's presence in both cases, the 2024 Cape Town note. Lars nodded, his face darkening. She was a spy, Soviet, we thought, but working for someone else. Burned to erase her identity, but I found something they missed, a letter, hidden in her hotel room, coded like the Somerton scrap. Lars handed Elias a yellowed envelope, its contents a single page, written in a substitution cipher. 23RF, Raven Falls, Bergen Burns. Elias recorded it, his pulse quickening. The same RF as Somerton, radio frequency as signal operation. Raven, the defector Johan recruited in 1948. Must be the Somerton Man. Lars confirmed the ear anomaly match, his voice low. She met someone before she died. Johan Van der Merwe, ex-South African intelligence, was in Bergen, November 1970. I saw him near the valley, with a woman matching her description. He burned her to silence her, she knew too much. Elias visited the Isdal Valley, a 2-hour hike from Bergen's center. The terrain rugged, the pine trees dense, the air heavy with history. The site where the Isdal Woman was found was marked by a small plaque, the ground still scorched in memory, the fjord's wind carrying a mournful howl. A local ranger, Ingrid Olsen, a stout woman in her 50s with a weathered face, joined him, her knowledge of the area invaluable. She was burned with petrol, Ingrid said, her voice soft. No footprints, no witnesses, but I found this years ago near the site. She handed Elias a rusted key, its tag faded but legible. 3, Bergen Safe House. Elias recorded it, his mind racing. A safe house key. Johan ran a network, and Isdal was part of it, silenced when she turned. Back in Bergen, Elias tracked the safe house address. An abandoned flat near the fish market, its windows boarded, the air stale with decades of neglect. Inside, he found a hidden compartment in the floor containing a 1970 ledger, names, dates, coded messages. Raven terminated 1948, Adelaide. Isdal terminated 1970, Bergen. Network active, Cape Town hub. Johan Van der Merwe's initials, JVM, were scrawled on every page, his role as handler confirmed. Elias recorded the find, his voice tense. March 22, 2025, for 32 p.m. Johan's ledger. Raven was Somerton, Isdal his agent, both killed to protect the network. It's still running in Cape Town. He met Lars at the hotel, sharing the ledger, their conversation heavy with the weight of history. Lars revealed a personal stake. His sister, a journalist, had investigated Johan in 1971, disappearing shortly after, her body never found. I've waited 50 years for this, Lars said, his voice breaking. Johan took her, I know it. Elias recorded the moment, his empathy deepening. Lars's lost mirrors mine, my father, an Interpol agent, died chasing spies in the 80s. This is personal for both of us. They planned to trace the network to Cape Town, Lars offering to join, his retirement no barrier to justice. That night, Elias reviewed his findings, the ledger and letter safe in his bag, the key a tangible link to Isdal's life. He prepared to sleep, the fjord's waves a distant lullaby, when a loud crash echoed from the hallway. He grabbed his recorder, its light on, and peered through the peephole, a man tall in a black coat, his face obscured, prying at his door with a crowbar. Elias barricaded the door with a chair, his heart pounding, but the man broke through, his eyes cold as he lunged, a knife glinting. Elias dodged, grabbing a lamp, swinging it at the man's head, the glass shattering as the intruder stumbled, dropping a note. Bergen burns again. The man fled, but a spark from the lamp ignited a curtain, the flames spreading fast, smoke filling the room. Elias recorded his escape, coughing through the haze. March 22, 2025, 11:59 p.m. He attacked me, set the hotel on fire. I'm running, but they'll kill to keep this secret. He grabbed his bag, the ledger inside, and fled down the fire escape, the hotel ablaze behind him, Bergen's night lit by the inferno, the cipher's shadow a deadly flame across time. Elias Moreau stumbled down the fire escape of his Bergen hotel, the flames roaring behind him, the night sky lit by the inferno as smoke billowed into the fjord air. It was March 23, 2025, and the heat singed his skin, his lungs burning as he clutched his bag, the ledger from the Isdal Woman's safe house. Proof of Johan Van der Merwe's Cold War spy network. Safe inside. His recorder captured his ragged breaths. March 23, 2025, 12:03 a.m. The hotel's burning. They set it to kill me. I've got the ledger, but I'm running. The 62-year-old retired Interpol investigator turned private detective reached the street. Bergen's cobblestones slick with rain, sirens wailing as firefighters arrived, their shouts echoing in the chaos. Lars Hansen, the retired detective who'd helped him, Met Elias at a safe distance, his grizzled face pale with shock, his blue eyes wide. "You're alive, thank God," Lars said, his Norwegian accent thick, his hands trembling as he helped Elias into his car, a battered Volvo parked nearby. "They'll stop at nothing, Johan's network, still active after all these years." Elias nodded, recording their escape. "Lars saved me, but the fire's a message, same as Isdal, burned to silence. Johan's in Cape Town, and I'm going after him." The ledger confirmed Johan's role. Handler of the Somerton Man, codename Raven, killed in Adelaide, 1948, and the Isdal Woman, burned in Bergen, 1970. A network now reactivated, its tendrils reaching Cape Town in 2025. Elias booked a flight to Cape Town, a 16-hour journey with a layover in Istanbul, his mind on the Signal Hill meeting scheduled for March 20th. Already missed due to the Bergen attack, but the note's threat lingered. He landed in Cape Town on March 24th, the city's autumn sun warm, Table Mountain a looming backdrop as he drove to his apartment in Sea Point. The Atlantic Ocean's waves a familiar comfort. He called Dr. Margaret Chen in Adelaide, updating her on the Bergen fire, her voice tense. "The network's desperate, you're close, Elias. Be careful in Cape Town." Elias recorded her warning. "Margaret's right, Johan Van der Merwe's here, 98 if alive, running this from Signal Hill. I need to find him." Elias contacted Aisha Kosi, a local private investigator in her 30s with a sharp mind and a network of informants, a former colleague from his Interpol days. Aisha met him at a cafe near the VNA waterfront, her dreadlocks tied back, her eyes scanning the crowd, her voice low. "I heard about Signal Hill. Word on the street is Johan still active, running a tech firm as a front, SignalTech. They deal in surveillance, but it's a cover for espionage. He's old, but his son, Peter Van der Merwe, 65, handles operations." Elias recorded the lead, his pulse quickening. March 24th, 2025, 2:15 p.m. Aisha's intel ties Johan to SignalTech. Peter's the key. "I'll set a new meeting at Signal Hill, draw them out." He visited the Signal Hill site, a windswept ridge overlooking the city, the ocean stretching to the horizon, the hill's history as a signal point for ships a fitting backdrop for a spy network. Elias recorded the scene. Signal Hill, where the 2024 note said to meet. "I'll send a message through Aisha's contacts, bait Johan or Peter." Aisha spread word through her informants, claiming Elias had the Somerton cipher's solution and wanted to negotiate. Scheduling a meeting for March 25th at 8 p.m. Elias prepared, his old Interpol training kicking in. Wireless earpiece, concealed knife, his recorder running. A backup plan with Aisha stationed nearby in a van, monitoring his signal. The meeting night arrived, the hill shrouded in dusk, the city lights twinkling below, the wind carrying a chill as Elias stood near the signal cannon, his eyes scanning the shadows. A black SUV approached, its headlights off, and two men emerged. Johan Van der Merwe, frail but upright at 98, his face scarred, his eyes cold, and Peter, stocky in his 60s, his posture tense. Johan's voice was a rasp. "You have the cipher, Moreau? Hand it over and you might live." Elias recorded the confrontation, his voice steady. March 25th, 2025, 8:03 p.m. Johan and Peter Van der Merwe. "I've got them. But they'll kill for this." Elias held up a fake cipher solution, his tone firm. "Somerton, Isdal, you killed them to protect your network. Raven was your defector, Isdal your agent, and now you're selling secrets through SignalTech. I've got the ledger, Johan. It's over." Peter lunged, drawing a pistol, but Johan raised a hand, his voice icy. "Not here, too public. Take him to the warehouse." Before Peter could act, Aisha signaled, her van's headlights flashing. A distraction as Elias dove behind the cannon, Peter's shot grazing the metal, the bang echoing across the hill. Chaos erupted. Elias sprinted down the hill, the Van der Merwe's pursuing, their SUV roaring to life as Aisha drove to intercept, her van cutting them off, tires screeching. Elias reached a narrow path, his breath ragged, his recorder capturing his escape. "They're chasing me, Signal Hill's a trap." He ducked into the underbrush, the SUV's headlights sweeping past, Johan's voice shouting orders to Peter. "Find him. He knows too much." Aisha radioed, her voice urgent. "I've called backup. Police are coming, but you need to hide." Elias found a rocky outcrop, his heart pounding, the city below a distant glow, the network's grip tightening. He waited, the Van der Merwe's retreating as police sirens approached, their SUV speeding away, leaving Elias shaken but alive. Aisha found him, her face etched with worry, her van a safe haven as they drove back to Sea Point. Elias recorded the aftermath. "I survived. Johan and Peter are real, SignalTech is the front, but they're gone. I've got their voices on tape." Aisha shared a lead, SignalTech's warehouse in Woodstock, a hub for their operations, likely where they planned to take him. Elias prepared to raid it, his resolve hardened, but as he stepped out of the van at his apartment, a deafening explosion rocked the street. His car, parked nearby, erupted in flames, the blast throwing him to the ground, his recorder capturing his scream. March 25, 2025, 10:47 p.m. "My car, it's a bomb. They're trying to kill me." The flames roared, the cipher's shadow a deadly blaze, Elias's fight for truth far from over. Elias Moreau hit the ground as his car exploded outside his Sea Point apartment, the blast's heat searing his face, the night sky of Cape Town lit by flames on March 25, 2025. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the shockwave rattle his bones, his ears ringing as he scrambled to his feet, his recorder capturing his gasp. March 25, 2025, 10:49 p.m. "My car blown up. Johan and Peter Van der Merwe, they're trying to kill me again." Aisha Nkosi, his local ally, pulled him into her van, her dreadlocks swaying as she floored the gas, the street behind them a chaos of fire and sirens. The explosion was a clear message. The Van der Merwes, running SignalTech as a front for their Cold War spy network, were desperate to silence him after the Signal Hill confrontation. Aisha drove to a safe house, a nondescript flat in Green Point, its walls bare, the air thick with tension as she patched Elias's minor burns, her hands steady despite her worry. "They're escalating," she said, her voice low. "SignalTech has got resources. Johan's old, but Peter's ruthless. You need to decode that cipher fast." Elias nodded, recording the aftermath. "Aisha saved me, but the bomb proves Johan and Peter are cornered. The Somerton code, Wagga-Waggatman RF, is the key to their network. The ledger from Bergen, linking the Somerton Man, codename Raven, and the Isdal Woman to Johan's operations, hinted at a radio frequency operation, its reactivation tied to the 2024 Cape Town note. Elias contacted Dr. Ravi Patel, the cryptologist from Adelaide, via secure video call, the screen flickering as Ravi's bespectacled face appeared, his voice excited. "I've been working on the Somerton code. Wagga Wagga could be a location, Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, or a code for wait. TMEN likely means the man, and RF is radio frequency consistent with your ledger's signals." Elias recorded the analysis, his mind racing. March 26, 2025, 1:15 a.m. Ravi's close. RF confirms a signal network, possibly how Raven communicated. Ravi suggested a historical context. Post-war espionage relied on shortwave radios, encrypted messages sent via specific frequencies, a method Johan might have modernized through SignalTech. Elias visited the Cape Town archives, a modern building with glass walls, seeking Cold War records on South African intelligence. He met Dr. Leila Mbeki, a historian in her 40s with a keen eye, her office lined with microfiche readers, her voice warm. Johan Van der Merwe was special branch, anti-communist, but he worked both sides, recruiting defectors like Raven in 1948. "I found a file declassified in 2010, linking him to a radio station in Cape Town, call sign Shadow Echo, active until 1975. Elias recorded the file, his pulse quickening. Shadow Echo, Johan's network, using radio to control agents from Somerton to Isdal, now revived. Leila shared a map, coordinates near Table Mountain, where the station once operated, possibly reactivated by SignalTech. Elias and Aisha drove to the coordinates, a rugged trail leading to a cave beneath Table Mountain slopes, the air cool, the city lights a distant glow below. Inside they found rusted equipment, antique radios, a frequency dial frozen at 7.5 MHz, and a 2024 logbook. Shadow Echo operational, RF test successful, range 500 kilometers. Elias recorded the discovery, his voice tense. March 26, 2025 for 32 p.m. This is Shadow Echo, Johan's old network, now modernized, tied to the Somerton cipher. They're broadcasting again. Aisha noted fresh footprints, suggesting recent use, and they photographed the site, uploading evidence to a secure cloud drive for safety. Back in Greenpoint, Elias enlisted Ravi to decode the cipher fully, using the ledger's codes as a key. Ravi worked remotely, his algorithms crunching data, and by evening he called back. It's a frequency schedule. Wagga Wagga means wait at Wagga, a fallback site. TMAN is target man, Raven, and RF sets the frequency 7.5 MHz for Shadow Echo's transmissions. The message was incomplete, but it ordered Raven to wait for a signal, likely his death warrant when he defected. Elias recorded the breakthrough, his voice grim. Raven, Somerton, was betrayed, killed by Johan's signal. This network's been silencing agents since 1948. The next lead was Raven's family. Elias tracked a descendant, Emily Carter, a quiet woman in her 50s living in Cape Town's suburbs, her home a modest bungalow with a garden. Emily welcomed him, her hands trembling as she shared her grandfather's story. Born in Russia, defected to Australia in 1948, disappeared as the Somerton Man he sent letters, Emily said, her voice soft, handing Elias a bundle, one dated 1947. I've joined a new cause, radio work, safe passage promised. Johan's my handler. Elias recorded the letter, his empathy deepening. Emily's grandfather was Raven, recruited, then killed. This hits close. My father died chasing spies, same network maybe. That night, Elias met Emily at a seaside cafe, the ocean's rhythm a backdrop as he explained the cipher, her face paling with realization. He was murdered, she whispered, her eyes wet. For what? Elias promised justice, recording her resolve. Emily's with me. Raven's legacy won't be forgotten. But as they left, a waiter slipped a drink to Elias, his smile too wide, the glass laced with a bitter taste. His vision blurred, his legs buckling, his recorder capturing his slurred words. March 26, 2025, 10:47 p.m. drugged. Someone's here in the cafe. Emily screamed, helping him outside, but a black SUV roared up, its door opening, a man in a black coat reaching for him. The network's shadow closing in as Elias fought to stay conscious. Elias Moreau slumped against the cafe wall in Cape Town, the bitter taste of the drugged drink lingering on his tongue, his vision swimming as a man in a black coat reached from the SUV's open door. It was March 26, 2025, and the night air was cool, the Atlantic Ocean's waves a distant roar as Emily Carter, Raven's granddaughter, screamed, pulling him back. His recorder captured his slurred words. March 26, 2025, 10:49 p.m. drugged, SUV black coat, they're trying to take me. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective fought the haze, his training kicking in as he jabbed his elbow into the man's ribs, the attacker grunting and retreating, the SUV speeding off into the darkness. Aisha Nkosi, his local ally, arrived moments later, her van screeching to a halt, her dreadlocks bouncing as she hauled Elias inside, Emily scrambling after. They're bold, Aisha said, her voice sharp, checking his pulse as she drove to the Greenpoint safe house. That was SignalTech, Johan or Peter Van der Merwe's doing. Elias's head cleared slowly, the drug, likely a sedative, not lethal, wearing off, his recorder still running as he rasped. They wanted me alive, maybe to interrogate. The cipher's too close to their network. The Somerton Man's code, decoded as a radio frequency schedule for Shadow Echo, and the Bergen ledger tying Johan to Raven's and Isdal's deaths, had rattled the Van der Merwes, their car bomb, and now this ambush proof of their desperation. At the safe house, Aisha called a doctor, a discreet friend named Dr. Nia Sabanda, a woman in her 50s with steady hands, who examined Elias, her brow furrowed. You're lucky, mild sedative, no lasting damage, but rest, Nia said, her voice calm. Elias recorded the assessment. March 27, 2025, 12:15 a.m. Nia says I'll recover, but Johan's network is tightening, SignalTech is behind this. He reviewed the ledger, its pages detailing Johan's Cold War operations. Recruiting Raven in 1948 Adelaide, silencing Isdal in 1970 Bergen, now reactivating Shadow Echo via SignalTech, a tech firm in Cape Town dealing in surveillance tech, a perfect cover for espionage. Elias contacted Dr. Layla Mbeki, the historian who'd linked Johan to Shadow Echo, her voice tense over the phone. SignalTech has been bidding on government contracts, encrypted comms, surveillance drones. Johan's son, Peter, runs it, but Johan's the strategist, 98 and still pulling strings. Elias recorded the lead. SignalTech, Peter's front, Johan's legacy, tied to Shadow Echo's revival. I need to infiltrate. Aisha suggested a whistleblower, a former SignalTech engineer she'd heard rumors about, and tracked down Thabo Mthembu, a nervous man in his 40s with haunted eyes, meeting him at a quiet park near Musenberg Beach, the waves crashing as a backdrop. Thabo spoke in a whisper, his hands shaking. I worked on their secure comms, its Shadow Echo, upgraded, broadcasting encrypted signals to sleeper agents worldwide. Johan's obsessed, says it's his Cold War triumph. Peter's pushing a 2025 deployment, military sales billions. I quit when I saw the body counts, Somerton, Isdal, maybe more. Elias recorded his confession, his pulse quickening. Thabo confirms Shadow Echo's active. Johan and Peter are selling death, and I've got proof. Thabo handed over a USB drive with schematics, frequency modulators, a 2024 test log showing a 600 kilometers range, lethal at 8 megahertz, evidence of a modern spy network. He warned, "They'll kill me for this. I'm leaving tonight." Elias and Aisha planned a stakeout at SignalTech's Woodstock warehouse, the firm's hub, using Thabo's intel to map entry points. They enlisted a friend, Detective Sifo Dlamini, a burly man in his 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor, to provide covert support. The next day, March 28th, they approached the warehouse, a gray building with high fences, the air thick with industrial hum. Elias recorded the approach. March 28, 2025, 3:47 p.m. SignalTech warehouse. Thabo's schematics guide us, but they'll be watching. They scaled a back wall, Sifo covering them, and slipped inside, finding a control room. Radios humming at 8 megahertz, a map marked with global sites, 2025 schedule. Shadow Echo Phase 2, Cape Town Hub, Johannesburg Relay. As Elias photographed the evidence, a security team burst in, their shouts echoing, tasers drawn. Aisha tackled one, Elias disarming another, but a third fired, the jolt hitting his arm, his recorder capturing his grunt. "They've got us fighting back." They fled, a chase through the warehouse's corridors, crates toppling, alarms blaring as they dodged pursuit. Sifo created a diversion, crashing a gate, allowing Elias and Aisha to escape in her van, the security team's SUV close behind, its headlights glaring in the rear view. Elias recorded the escape. They're chasing, SignalTech's guards armed, relentless. Aisha wove through Cape Town's streets, the waterfront a blur, the SUV gaining as Elias navigated via GPS, his arm numb but functional. They lost their pursuers near Signal Hill, doubling back to the safe house, their breaths ragged. Elias uploaded Thabo's evidence to a secure server, his voice tense. "We've got the schematics, Shadow Echoes Global, but they nearly caught us." Thabo texted, confirming his safe exit, but as Elias stepped into his apartment, the door ajar, drawers overturned, papers scattered, his recorder captured his shock. March 28, 2025, 10:47 p.m. My home ransacked. They've been here looking for the cipher, the ledger, nothing's safe. The silence was heavy, the network's shadow a tangible threat, Elias's fight deepening into a personal vendetta. Elias Moreau stood frozen in the doorway of his ransacked Sea Point apartment, the scattered papers and overturned drawers a stark violation of his sanctuary. It was March 28, 2025, and the Cape Town night outside was calm, the Atlantic Ocean's waves a distant murmur, but the chaos inside spoke of danger. His recorder captured his tense whisper. March 28, 2025, 10:50 p.m. My home, torn apart. SignalTech, Johan Van der Merwe, Peter. They're looking for the cipher, the ledger. They're closing in. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his pursuit. The Somerton Man's 1948 death in Adelaide, the Isdal Woman's 1970 burning in Bergen, and now SignalTech's modern espionage network, Shadow Echo, tied to Johan's Cold War operations, all converging on him. Aisha Nkosi, his local ally, arrived moments later, her dreadlocks pulled back, her eyes scanning the wreckage, her voice sharp. They're desperate, Thabo's schematics, your evidence, they know you've got them pinned. Elias nodded, recording her assessment. Aisha's right, they want the ledger, the cipher solution, anything to stop me. But we've got their warehouse layout, their plans. Time to strike back. The USB from Thabo Mthembu, the SignalTech whistleblower, contained schematics of Shadow Echo's modernized radio network, a 2024 test log confirming its 600 kilometers range, and a schedule for global deployment, military sales worth billions, orchestrated by Johan and his son Peter. Elias called Detective Sifo Dlamini, the burly policeman who'd helped during the warehouse chase, his voice urgent. Sifo, we've got enough to raid SignalTech, Tabo's evidence, the ledger, the map of their hubs. Let's set a trap at the Woodstock warehouse, catch them in the act. Sifo agreed, assembling a task force of 10 officers, planning a sting for the next evening, March 29th at 8 p.m., when Tabo's intel suggested a high-level meeting. Elias recorded the plan. March 29th, 2025, 9:15 a.m. Sifo's on board. Stakeout tonight, Woodstock warehouse. We'll use the schematics to corner Peter, maybe Johan himself. The day was spent preparing. Sifo's team scouted the warehouse, a gray building with high fences, its perimeter now familiar after Elias's earlier infiltration. Aisha rigged surveillance cameras, her tech skills honed from years as a PI, while Elias wore a wire, his recorder running, his concealed knife a last resort. He met Dr. Layla Mbeki, the historian, at her archive office, seeking more on Shadow Echo's history. Layla handed him a 1960s dossier on Johan, her voice low. He recruited across continents, Adelaide, Bergen, even Johannesburg. Shadow Echo wasn't just radio, it was a sleeper network, agents embedded, waiting for signals to act. Elias recorded the dossier, his mind on Raven and Isdal. Johan's network killed to silence. Raven in 1948, Isdal in 1970. Now they're waking sleepers in 2025. The stakeout began at dusk, the warehouse's industrial hum a backdrop as Sifo's team took positions. Snipers on rooftops, officers in vans, Elias and Aisha in a hidden lookout, the schematics guiding their moves. At 8:05 p.m., a black SUV arrived, Peter Van der Merwe stepping out, his stocky frame tense, a laptop under his arm, joined by a woman in her 40s, her face obscured, her posture sharp, likely a buyer. Elias recorded the sighting. March 29, 2025, 8:07 p.m. Peter's here with a woman buyer maybe. No sign of Johan, but we'll take him. Sifo signaled, and the team moved, bursting through the warehouse doors shouting, "Police! Hands up!" Peter dropped the laptop, drawing a pistol, but the woman surrendered, her hands raised, her voice calm. "I'm just a broker, don't shoot." Officers tackled Peter, cuffing him as he struggled, his shouts echoing. "You'll never stop Shadow Echo." Elias and Aisha entered, securing the laptop, its screen open to a 2025 schedule. Phase 2, Sleeper Activation, Johannesburg, Dubai, Moscow, March 31st. Elias recorded the evidence, his pulse quickening. Shadow Echoes global. Peter's down, but the network's active, days away from deployment. The woman, identified as Nadia Volkov, a Russian broker, confirmed Peter's role. He handles logistics. Johan's the brain, hiding in Stellenbosch, a vineyard estate. Sifo's team swept the warehouse, finding more. A crate of radio modulators, a map of sleeper cells, a 2024 email from Johan. Raven's legacy lives, activate all agents. Elias recorded the hall, his voice grim. Johan's in Stellenbosch, planning a global strike. We've got Peter, but he's just the middleman. A subplot emerged. Aisha revealed a betrayal, her voice trembling. Sifo, I found texts on his burner phone. He tipped Peter about the raid, took a bribe to let him escape. He didn't expect us to move so fast. Elias recorded her confession, his trust shaken. Sifo, our ally, a traitor. We've got Peter, but this stings. They left the warehouse, Peter in custody, Nadia cooperating, but Johan still free, the network's leader out of reach. Elias drove to the safe house, the laptop secure, planning a raid on Stellenbosch, his resolve hardened despite Sifo's betrayal. He reflected on his father's death. An Interpol agent killed by spies in the 80s, possibly Johan's network, a personal stake fueling his fight. As he reviewed the laptop, a coded message flashed on the screen, decrypted by a virus. 23RF, Cape Town Falls, March 31st. Elias recorded the warning, his voice tense. March 29, 2025, 11:47 p.m. A message, same code as Somerton Isdal. They're planning something big in 2 days here in Cape Town. The stakes rose, the network's shadow a ticking clock, Elias's fight racing against time. Elias Moreau sat in the Greenpoint safe house, the coded message from Peter Van der Merwe's laptop. 23RF, Cape Town Falls, March 31st. Glowing on the screen, its ominous promise chilling the room. It was March 29, 2025, and the Cape Town night outside was quiet. The Atlantic Ocean's waves a distant hum, but the tension inside was palpable. His recorder captured his tense voice. March 29, 2025, 11:50 p.m. The code matches Somerton, Isdal. Johan's network plans a strike here in 2 days. We've got Peter, but Johan's still free in Stellenbosch. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his pursuit. The Somerton Man's 1948 death in Adelaide, the Isdal Woman's 1970 burning in Bergen, and now Shadow Echo's 2025 revival by SignalTech, all tied to Johan Van der Merwe's decades-long espionage network. Aisha Nkosi, his local ally, paced the room, her dreadlocks swaying, her voice sharp. Sipho's betrayal slowed us, but Peter's in custody. Let's break him, find Johan's plan. Elias nodded, recording her resolve. Aisha's right. Peter knows the network's scope, and we've got 2 days to stop Cape Town's fall. He contacted Detective Sipho Dlamini, despite the man's treachery, needing his official pull to arrange the interrogation, his voice cold. Sipho, you're on thin ice. Get Peter to the station, or you're done. Sipho complied, his burly frame tense as he escorted Peter, cuffed, to the Cape Town Central Police Station, his silence a tacit admission of guilt. Elias joined the interrogation, his wire transmitting to Aisha, his recorder running, his eyes locked on Peter Van der Merwe, the stocky 65-year-old SignalTech operative, his face bruised from the warehouse arrest. Captain Naledi Kosi, a stern woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor, led the questioning, her voice unyielding. Peter, your father's network, Shadow Echo. What's the plan for March 31st? Peter's jaw clenched, his eyes defiant, but Elias leaned in, his tone calm. We've got the ledger, the schematics, Nadia Volkov's confession. Your father killed Raven in 1948, Isdal in 1970. How many more will die for his legacy? Peter's resolve cracked, his voice low. Shadow echoes my father's life, radio signals to activate sleepers, embedded agents from the Cold War. March 31st, we're triggering a wave, Cape Town port, sabotage, then Johannesburg, Moscow, Dubai. Buyers pay billions, military coups, chaos. Elias recorded the confession, his pulse quickening. Peter admits it, global sabotage, starting here, funded by Shadow Echo's revival. Peter continued, his voice shaky. Johan's at the Stellenbosch Vineyard, Estate Van der Merwe, finalizing the signal, a 10 MHz broadcast to wake the sleepers. He's obsessed, says Raven's death was justice for defecting, Isdal's a warning. But there's a buyer, Colonel Tariq Hassan, ex-Egyptian military, meeting him tomorrow night. Naledi pressed for details, and Peter gave coordinates. A vineyard 45 kilometers east of Cape Town. Its wine exports a cover for the network's hub. Elias uploaded a new memo. March 30th, 2025, 1:15 a.m. Peter's broken. Johan's in Stellenbosch, Tariq's the buyer, strike in 36 hours. We move fast. Elias drove to Stellenbosch with Aisha, the rolling vineyards a stark contrast to the city's tension, the air sweet with grapes under the morning sun. He met a journalist, Zola Mackay's, a wiry man in his 40s with a keen nose for secrets, who'd covered SignalTech's shady deals. Zola shared a tip. I infiltrated a vineyard event, heard Johan bragging about Shadow Echo, a signal to end all wars. Tariq's arriving tonight, 8 p.m., with cash and a contract. Elias recorded the lead, his mind on history. Zola's intel confirms Johan's endgame, same hubris that killed Raven Isdal. This hits home, my father died to spies like him. Zola agreed to help, his courage a subplot of redemption after past silence. They scouted the vineyard, a sprawling estate with a stone manor, its cellars a likely broadcast site, the hum of equipment faint but present. Elias recorded the scene. March 30th, 2025, 3:47 p.m. Van der Merwe Estate, Shadow Echo's heart, Johan's lair. We'll raid tonight. Aisha rigged a drone with a camera, mapping the layout, guards patrolling, a cellar entrance, a radio tower disguised as a silo. Naledi assembled a task force, 15 officers, planning a silent approach, Elias and Aisha as observers, their wires active. The vineyard's beauty masked its danger, the stakes personal as Elias recalled his father's unsolved death. At 7:30 p.m., the team moved, scaling the perimeter, the night air cool, the vineyard silent until a guard spotted them, his shout alerting others. Elias recorded the chaos. March 30th, 2025, 7:33 p.m. They've seen us. Fight's on. Officers subdued the guards, but an explosion rocked the cellar, flames erupting as Johan's voice boomed over a speaker. "You'll burn with my legacy, Moreau." Tariq Hassan fled, abandoning a briefcase, but Johan escaped down a tunnel, his frail 98-year-old frame surprisingly agile. Elias and Aisha dove for cover, the blast throwing debris, Aisha's arm grazed by shrapnel, her cry echoing as they scrambled out, the task force retreating. Elias recorded the aftermath, coughing through smoke. "The cellar's gone. Johan set a trap, escaped with Tariq. Aisha's hurt, but we've got the briefcase. Inside, contracts, cash, a 2025 schedule. Cape Town port sabotage at 6 a.m. March 31st. Sleeper activation across continents." Zola photographed it, his face pale. "This is war. Johan's not done." As they drove back, a coded radio signal crackled on Aisha's van scanner, decrypted by the virus. 23RF, Stellenbosch burns, Cape Town next. Elias recorded the warning, his voice grim. March 30th, 2025, 10:47 p.m. Another message. Johan striking Stellenbosch again, then Cape Town. "We're out of time." The vineyard smoldered behind them, the network's shadow a relentless threat. Elias Moreau gripped the steering wheel of Aisha Nkosi's van, the coded radio signal. 23RF, Stellenbosch burns, Cape Town next. Crackling through the scanner, its decrypted message a dire warning of Johan Van der Merwe's next move. It was March 30th, 2025, and the Stellenbosch vineyard smoldered in the distance, the explosion from Johan's trap still echoing in his ears as he drove back to Cape Town, the night air heavy with the scent of burnt vines. His recorder captured his grim voice. March 30th, 2025, 10:50 p.m. Johan's message. "Stellenbosch was a diversion, Cape Town's the target, tomorrow at dawn. We've got hours to stop him." At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his pursuit. The Somerton Man's 1948 death in Adelaide, the Isdal Woman's 1970 burning in Bergen, and now Shadow Echo's 2025 revival by SignalTech, all orchestrated by Johan's decades-long spy network. Aisha, her arm bandaged from a shrapnel graze, sat beside him, her dreadlocks pulled back, her face pale but determined. The port sabotage, 6 a.m., March 31st, from the briefcase. Johan's activating sleepers globally, starting here. "We need his records, his plans." Elias nodded, recording her resolve. "Aisha's right. The vineyard was a hub, but Johan's got backups. We've got Peter's confession, Tariq Hassan's abandoned contract, but we need more to stop the network." The briefcase from the vineyard raid contained contracts with Colonel Tariq Hassan, an ex-Egyptian military buyer, a 2025 schedule for sleeper activation, and a map of Shadow Echo's hubs, Johannesburg, Moscow, Dubai, set to trigger after Cape Town. Elias contacted Captain Naledi Kosi, the stern policewoman leading the task force, her voice tense over the phone. "We're interrogating Tariq. He's giving up names, buyers, but Johan's the key. Peter mentioned a safe house in Stellenbosch, a fallback for records. I'll send you coordinates." Elias recorded the lead. March 31st, 2025, 12:15 a.m. Naledi's got a safe house location. Johan's records might be there, his full network exposed. He drove to the coordinates, a modest cottage on the outskirts of Stellenbosch, its windows dark, the vineyard's glow a haunting backdrop. Aisha scouted the perimeter, her drone buzzing overhead, confirming no guards, the door ajar. Johan had fled in haste. Inside, the cottage was a time capsule, dusty files, a 1950s typewriter, a radio set to 8 MHz, the same frequency as Shadow Echo. Elias found a locked safe, its combination cracked using Johan's birth year from Leila Mbekki's dossier, 1927. The safe opened, revealing a trove, Johan's personal journals, 1948 to 2025, detailing Shadow Echo's history. Recruiting Raven in Adelaide, ordering his poisoning when he defected. burning Isdal and Bergen to silence her, embedding sleepers across continents, waiting for signals to act. A 2024 entry read, Shadow Echo Reborn. SignalTech funds the future, Raven's legacy complete. Cape Town falls first, then the world. Elias recorded the journals, his voice urgent. This is it, Johan's confession, Shadow Echo's blueprint. Raven Isdal, all pawns in his game, now a global threat. Aisha found a map, marked with sleeper cells. Cape Town Port, Johannesburg Mines, Moscow Metro, Dubai oil fields, each tied to a sabotage plan, triggered by a 10 MHz broadcast scheduled for 6 a.m. Elias recorded the map. The network's scope, hundreds of agents, decades in waiting, activated tomorrow. We've got 5 hours. He reflected on his father's death, an Interpol agent killed in the 80s, possibly by Shadow Echo, a personal stake fueling his fight. Zola Mackay's, the journalist ally, arrived to document the find, his camera flashing, his voice low. This is bigger than I thought. Johan's a war criminal, hiding in plain sight. A subplot of betrayal emerged. Zola revealed a suspicion, his face tense. I tracked Aisha's drone logs. Someone's been leaking our moves. Nality's team has a mole, feeding Johan our plans. That's how he escaped the vineyard. Elias recorded the accusation, his trust shaken. A mole explains the bomb, the ambush. But who? He confronted Nality, her jaw tightening, but she admitted. It's Constable Thandai Zuma. She's been on our team, but her bank records show SignalTech payments. She's gone, vanished after the vineyard. Elias recorded the betrayal, his voice grim. Thandai, our leak, SignalTech's spy. We're compromised, but we've got the records. Elias and Aisha planned a final move. Intercept the 10 MHz broadcast at the Cape Town port, using the journals to identify sleeper agents. Nality mobilized her remaining team, purging Thandai's access, her voice resolute. We'll shut down the port operation, arrest the sleepers, then hunt Johan. They drove to the port, the city asleep, the docks quiet except for the hum of cranes, the task force taking positions as 5 a.m. approached. Elias recorded the setup. March 31st, 2025, 5:15 a.m. Port Stakeout. Shadow Echo's first strike. We'll stop it here. Johan's records give us names, faces. As they waited, a shadow moved on a nearby rooftop. A figure, tall, scarred, his face obscured, watching them through binoculars, the same silhouette Elias had seen in Adelaide, Bergen, Signal Hill. His recorder captured his whisper. March 31st, 2025, 5:47 a.m. He's here, Johan or his agent watching us. They know we're here. The figure vanished, the hum of Shadow Echo's signal faint but growing. The network's shadow a living threat as dawn broke, the port a battleground for Elias's final stand. Elias Moreau crouched behind a shipping container at the Cape Town port, the faint hum of Shadow Echo's 10 MHz signal growing louder, the dawn light casting long shadows across the docks. It was March 31st, 2025, and the figure he'd spotted on the rooftop, tall, scarred, possibly Johan Van der Merwe himself, had vanished, but his presence lingered like a specter. Elias's recorder captured his tense whisper. March 31st, 2025, 5:50 a.m. He's watching, Johan or his agent, here at the port. The sabotage starts at 6 a.m. We've got minutes to stop it. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective felt the weight of his journey. The Somerton Man's 1948 death in Adelaide, the Isdal Woman's 1970 burning in Bergen, and now Shadow Echo's 2025 revival by SignalTech, all tied to Johan's Cold War spy network, culminating in this moment. Aisha Nkosi, her arms still bandaged from the vineyard explosion, crouched beside him, her dreadlocks tied back, her eyes scanning the docks. The sleeper agents, Johan's journals named 3 here, Khalid Omar, Sarah Becker, and Mikhail Ivanov. They'll plant explosives, disrupt shipping, chaos to destabilize the region. Elias nodded, recording her update. Aisha's got the names, 3 sleepers activated by Shadow Echo's signal. We've got the map, the schedule, but Thandai's betrayal means they know we're here. Captain Nality Kosi's task force was positioned around the port. Snipers on cranes, officers in vans, their radios crackling as they awaited the 6 a.m. strike. Elias reviewed Johan's journals, secured from the Stellenbosch safe house, their pages detailing Shadow Echo's history. Recruiting Raven in 1948, silencing Isdal in 1970, embedding sleepers globally, now activated for sabotage in 2025. The map marked the port as the first strike, with explosives to cripple shipping, followed by Johannesburg, Moscow, and Dubai. Elias recorded his resolve. This ends here, Raven, Isdal, my father's death in the 80s, all tied to Johan. I'll stop him for them. Zola Mackay's, the journalist ally, was stationed nearby, camera ready to document the takedown, his presence a reminder of the story's global impact. At 5:58 a.m., movement stirred. 3 figures emerged near a docked freighter, their movements deliberate, each carrying a bag. Nality signaled, identifying them via binoculars. Khalid, Sarah, Mikhail, are sleepers armed with explosives. Elias recorded the sighting. They're here, planting bombs just as the schedule predicted. The task force moved, officers shouting, "Police! Drop the bags!" Khalid, a wiry man in his 40s, bolted, but Sarah, a blonde woman in her 30s, dropped her bag, raising her hands, her voice panicked. "I didn't want this, Johan forced me." Mikhail, a stocky Russian in his 50s, drew a pistol, firing wildly, his shots sparking off containers as officers returned fire. Hitting his leg, his scream echoing across the docks. Elias and Aisha joined the fray, tackling Khalid as he reached a control tower, his bag heavy with C4, his eyes wild. "Shadow Echo lives. You can't stop it." Elias disarmed him, cuffing him, his recorder capturing the struggle. Khalid's down, explosives secured, but Mikhail's still fighting. Nality's team subdued Mikhail, his blood staining the pavement, but Sarah's surrender revealed a subplot. She was a coerced sleeper, her family threatened by Johan, her voice breaking. "He's broadcasting from a yacht, off Camps Bay. The signal's live now." Elias recorded her confession, his mind racing. Sarah's turned. Johan's at sea, activating the global network from a yacht. Nality called for a marine unit, but time was short. The 10 MHz signal hummed louder, sleeper cells worldwide waking as the port strike faltered. Elias spotted a speedboat docked nearby, commandeering it with Aisha, their plan desperate. "We'll chase the yacht, stop the signal at the source." Zola stayed behind, documenting the arrests, his camera flashing as the task force secured the port, the explosives defused, Cape Town safe for now. Elias recorded the pursuit. March 31st, 2025, 6:15 a.m. We're on the water, Camps Bay, Johan's yacht, the signal's origin. "We'll end this." The speedboat roared across the Atlantic, the yacht, a sleek vessel named Raven's Echo. Visible near the horizon, its antennas active, the hum deafening. Elias and Aisha boarded, guns drawn, finding Johan Van der Merwe at the helm, 98 but fierce, his scarred face twisted with rage, a radio console broadcasting the signal. "You're too late, Moreau." Johan snarled, drawing a pistol, his voice a rasp. "Shadow Echo wakes the world, Raven's legacy, my triumph." Elias tackled him, the gun firing, a bullet grazing his shoulder. The pain sharp as Aisha smashed the console, the hum silenced, the signal cut mid-broadcast. Johan fought, his frail frame fueled by desperation, but Aisha cuffed him, his shouts fading as the yacht drifted. Elias recorded the capture, his voice strained. "Johan's down, signal stopped, but Johannesburg, Moscow, Dubai, they might still activate." Nality radioed, confirming the port was secure, but a gunshot rang out from the shore, Zola's scream crackling through the radio. March 31st, 2025, 7:47 a.m. Shots at the port. Zola's hit. Elias turned, the yacht rocking, Johan's laughter chilling. "You'll never stop them all, Moreau." The gunshot echoed, a new threat rising. Elias's victory incomplete as danger loomed on the horizon. Elias Moreau stood on the deck of Johan Van der Merwe's yacht, Raven's Echo. The hum of the Shadow Echo signal silenced. The 10 MHz broadcast cut mid-transmission as Aisha and Kosi cuffed the 98-year-old ex-spy. His scarred face twisted in defeat. It was March 31st, 2025, and the Atlantic Ocean off Camps Bay stretched endlessly before them. The dawn light reflecting off the water, Cape Town's skyline a distant silhouette. But Zola Mackay's scream over the radio. "Shots at the port, Zola's hit." Cut through the moment, a gunshot echoing from the shore, a stark reminder that the network's reach extended beyond Johan. Elias's recorder captured his strained voice. March 31st, 2025, 7:50 a.m. Johan's down, signal stopped, but Zola's been shot, there's more to this network. At 62, the retired Interpol investigator turned private detective knew his fight wasn't over. Aisha, her arm bandaged from the vineyard explosion, secured Johan, her dreadlocks tied back, her voice tense. "We've got him, but the sleepers, Johannesburg, Moscow, Dubai, they might still activate if the signal got through." Elias nodded, recording her concern. "Aisha's right, the port's safe, but the global network's a wild card. Zola needs us." He radioed Captain Naledi Kosi, the task force leader, who confirmed the port situation. "Zola's alive, shoulder wound, he'll make it. The shooter was a sleeper, Ivan Petrov, not on our list. We've got him, but there could be more." Elias recorded the update. "Zola's wounded but alive. Ivan a sleeper means Johan held back names. We need to dismantle this fully." They escorted Johan to the Cape Town port, Naledi's marine unit meeting them. The yacht towed as evidence, its radio console a key piece in Shadow Echo's downfall. Johan remained silent, his cold eyes defiant even in defeat, but Peter Van der Merwe, Johan's son, broke further under interrogation, revealing more sleeper names and safe houses: Johannesburg, Moscow, Dubai, each a hub for sabotage. Elias recorded Peter's confession. "Peter's giving up the network, safe houses, agents, but Ivan's attack proves there are gaps. We've got work to do." The port was secured, the sleepers Khalid Omar, Sarah Becker, and Mikhail Ivanov in custody. Sarah's coerced role a tragic echo of Raven's betrayal in 1948. Elias visited Zola at the hospital, the journalist's arm in a sling, his face pale but his spirit unbroken, his camera still clutched. "I got the shots," Shadow Echoes exposed Elias. "You did it." Elias recorded the moment, his voice warm. "Zola's a fighter. His evidence will go global for Raven, Isdal my father." He reflected on his father's death, an Interpol agent killed in the 80s, likely by Shadow Echo, a personal closure driving his resolve. Zola handed over footage of the port takedown, a testament to their fight, his words a vow. "I'll publish everything. Johan's legacy ends in shame." Elias joined a global task force, Interpol, South African police, Norwegian authorities, formed to dismantle Shadow Echo's remnants, coordinating with Lars Hansen in Bergen and Dr. Margaret Chun in Adelaide. Peter's intel led to raids. Johannesburg's hub shut down, Moscow's sleeper cell arrested, Dubai's operation foiled, the 10 MHz signal's partial broadcast mitigated by quick action. Elias recorded the effort. April 1, 2025, 2:15 p.m. Task Force is global, Shadow Echoes collapsing, but Johan's silence means there's more he's hiding. Emily Carter, Raven's granddaughter, flew in to testify, her presence a symbol of closure. Her grandfather's 1948 death as the Somerton Man finally avenged, her quiet strength a reminder of the human cost. Back in Stellenbosch, Elias revisited the Van der Merwe estate, now a crime scene, its vineyard silent, the cellar ruins a scar of their raid. He met Dr. Laylam Becky, the historian, who'd uncovered more on Shadow Echo's origins. Johan's 1940s recruitment under South African Special Branch, his defection to Soviet handlers, his double game embedding sleepers for decades. Layla handed him a final journal entry, 2025. "If I fall, the cipher lives, 23RF, a new Raven rises." Elias recorded the warning, his voice tense. Johan planned a successor, someone's out there carrying the torch. That evening, Elias met Emily and Aisha for dinner at a seaside restaurant, the ocean's rhythm a backdrop to their shared victory, Emily's gratitude a balm. "You gave my grandfather peace, Elias, thank you." He recorded the closure. Emily's words heal, Raven, Isdal my father, their stories end with justice. But as he walked back to his Sea Point apartment, the air shifted. A faint hum, like Shadow Echo's signal, vibrated through the street, subtle but chilling. He turned his recorder on and saw a figure in the distance, tall, younger than Johan, his face hidden, a new scar visible, the cipher's symbol 23RF spray-painted on a wall nearby. His voice broke. April 2, 2025, 11:59 p.m. "He's here, a new Raven, the hum's back, the network's alive." The figure vanished, the hum fading, but Elias's resolve hardened. A detective who'd faced the shadows and survived, his fight unending. The cipher's echo a haunting call to action.